to We Know Kenobi. This is the finale episode of our discussion of the series Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I don't know what else to do here. Spencer is, I can only assume he's messing with me. And
Yeah, my bad.
he's really messing with me.
My bad. 1 second. It'll do it.
For audio only listeners,
Yeah, so I figured,
this is the first time I didn't know that helmet was like all the different parts. I thought it was just a decoration.
yeah,
So
no, it goes on. It's like the way too expensive Black Series helmet, that I probably should not have spent that much money on, but yeah. No, it all comes apart in the exact ways that we see it come apart in the movies, which is pretty awesome. So I figured it should make an appearance at least once, and that this was the perfect opportunity for it to show up because, like you said, we're talking about the finale of Kenobi, and man, it was a lot. It was good. It was good. But man, I don't even know how to intro this episode, dude. I'm just God, I'm so excited about this episode. I guess we should start off with if there's have you ever wow, no, I can't speak. I'm so excited. Have you had anything Star Wars happen to you this week, Christian?
I'm on season 4 of Rebels. I haven't come across it much in my day-to-day life though. Not in
Me
the
neither.
outside world.
Yeah, no, me neither. This week's been kind of a slow Star Wars week, other than me watching Kenobi. I think I watched this episode twice. I think I did rewatch this episode for the first time. So I guess that moves right into, how did you watch this finale, and did you rewatch any of the other episodes to lead up to it? I guess probably not.
No, because we podcasted the day before.
Oh, that's right.
And I rewatched episode 4 for that. I watched this episode at 8 a.m. and my blinds in the living room don't go all the way down, so it was very bright in the room. So for that reason, it was like, I don't know, why does it look so dark? Why does everything on the screen look so invisible?
Yeah.
So I think I definitely had a only slightly improved sort of opinion of the visual aspect of the episode once I could see it in a better light. But it was like a first. I skipped breakfast in order to do it because I only had time to either eat breakfast or watch it before I went to my last class time, and it was pretty worth it, I think. To just, I don't know, satisfying in that I feel very it just, we've been talking about how this is going to change how we view other parts of Star Wars, and it also feels like an elaboration on things we love that have been introduced in Star Wars, whether it's Clone Wars, Rebels, Last Jedi, core ideas about either Kenobi or just Jedi in general that are being put into making it a little bit more explicit in the show. That was my big takeaway, I think.
Yeah.
Is that it's just another way of drawing out these ideas, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I agree. I personally have been working all week. I started my new job. No longer, until August, I'm no longer a Staples man. So, started my new job. So I've been having to be at work at 7:30 all week. So, I didn't get to watch it until I got home from work Wednesday. But I got home, I watched it, and was like, all right, I'm gonna watch this again tomorrow. And so then the next day, I got home from work, watched it again. Yeah. I'm not gonna repeat everything you just said, but I definitely agree with it hits all the points that it's like, this is what we wanted. This is like and not even that it showed us to do what you wanted, but it was just it felt like such a complete end to the series that, and you and I recently have talked about our disappointment with some of the Star Wars TV shows. And I think that this one just hit it right, like perfectly. Like, I love the ending. I love how it doesn't and it doesn't really tie everything specifically in a nice little bow, but to an extent, yeah, like it lends itself. I know there's been rumors of a season 2, but you know, I don't know. I don't even know if I need that right now. Like right now, I'm satisfied with this because of I love what they did with a limited series, and I like it. Um, I did forget one thing before we jump into the episode. I did forget one thing of Star Wars in my daily life that I forgot to mention on the last episode, but it's funny enough that I would like to tell you. Um, so I went to chaperone our church camp last week, and I was serving food, and one of Christian and I's mutual friends, and I were serving the breakfast, and I was giving out the pieces of bread for for spaghetti or whatever. And so my friend says, "Stand by on the bread." So I respond with, "Bread leader standing by." And I thought that was I thought it was clever, and he didn't get it because he doesn't really like Star Wars. So, but yeah, so bread leader.
Or yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yep. Exactly. So anyway, why don't we hop into some Kenobi? Where do we start with this episode?
I have a pseudo synopsis. It's
Oh,
not prose. I didn't like write a flowery language paragraph sort of thing
that's
because I
okay.
don't have the time or energy.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have keywords that clue me in.
Sweet.
So the finale starts with sort of like Vader and in the Devastator, pursuing
Mm-hmm.
Leia and Obi-Wan and the rest of the people on the path in their transport. Um, it's very reminiscent of A New Hope. And then back in the transport, they're like the hyperdrive's shot, the motivator's bad. This is not good. Roken is like trying to cheer up the civilians, but then he's like, yeah, Kenobi, this isn't going to work out. So Kenobi is like ready to sacrifice himself and distract Vader because he knows, again, just like in the last episode, Vader wants him. And meanwhile, Leia is comforting some children with Lola, and she is getting their minds off of it. And then Obi-Wan's like, well, I might need that too. And then, meanwhile, on Tatooine, we get a small scene of Riva talking to a food vendor or a water vendor, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Moisture. He's the guy. I hope it's the same guy from Book of Boba Fett. He's just getting all the hooligans.
I don't, as in like he aged
Yeah.
in
I
between
was.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. They could definitely make that uh, lore smoothing, which
That's a
I'll
new
bring up
term.
later.
I've never heard that term before.
Okay, I'll get into it. Um, it's something that the guys at Force Center were talking about as of like the when they're talking about like Obi-Wan, his story being sort of fit into the quotes that he says in other movies and making
Yeah.
sure the story lines up with what his quotes are. And like it's not a full on like what happened to the Mandalorians at this point in history. It's not like a big lore thing. It's just a little tiny detail that aligns with something someone said.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lore smoothing.
Okay.
So,
I
so
like
that's
it.
what I meant. So Reva is looking for Owen.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, we see Baru for the first time in this show. And Owen is he wants to help and he wants to just flee with Luke. And Baru is like, no, we're staying here. We're going to protect him. It's going to be all right. We're all that he needs. And then Kenobi says goodbye to um to Leia. Oh, I already said that scene. I got them a little bit out of order.
It's okay.
Okay, then we have this great scene with Inquisitor, the Grand Inquisitor, and Vader, where Vader is keying in on Kenobi, and that's all he. Man, that could have been our podcast title, keying in on Kenobi.
I like We Can Know Kenobi.
Okay, and then yeah, so Vader is throwing all this supposed plan to destroy the path away so that he can get Kenobi, and the Grand Inquisitor is just like, these are insurgents. We can destroy this entire network. And Vader's too stubborn, too blinded by his rage. And then we get Owen and Beru making sure that Luke knows to run, but Luke says he's not afraid. Um, Sort of just prepping. It's all this is sort of being cross cut to build up this tension. And then we get so Kenobi lands on, I think the planet is called Tessin. It's a very rocky planet. Lots of stalagmites, big stalagmites. I can't hear you. You're
Sorry,
muted.
I muted myself. Still a better name than Nar.
Ner.
Ner. That's even worse.
Ner. Um, so Kenobi lands on Tessin with Lola, and Lola. I think he gives Lola a little pat, and then Riva is approaching. At this point, it's nighttime on Tatooine, and she's approaching the Lars homestead. And then Vader does a standoff with Kenobi. He lands on Tessin, and then they do this little standoff, kind of like the Last Jedi, Kylo Ren and
Mm-hmm.
Luke standoff. Um, and yeah, they start fighting.
I didn't know they would do that in this show.
Surely, surely. Okay, so you're sarcastic.
Oh,
Uh,
did you think I was being serious? Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
No. Continue.
Uh, and then Riva makes her way into that little underground portion of the Lars
Mm-hmm.
homestead. I don't know what that's called. Is it the garage?
The
It's
basement.
it's the little, yeah, it's the outdoor basement that makes the Lars homestead. I feel like, to me, it bumps up its property value immediately because it looks
Oh yeah.
tiny from the outside, but then you see that and it's like, no, they're fine. They got
Yeah, the house is
plants.
pretty
It
big.
looks spacious. It
Yeah.
literally looks like a common area, and then there's a bunch of other apartments. It's not that big,
No, but
but it
it's
it
yeah.
looks roomier than they let on.
They definitely have the best property on Tatooine. That's out of every house we've ever seen on Tatooine, theirs is the best.
Probably. I feel like Kenobi's hut has a bit more atmosphere because he's got all the things. He has all these collectibles,
Yeah, that's
and he's
true.
got a good view. But well, and there's a bit of danger because Kenobi's is like on the. It's like through the pass of
Yeah,
the Tusken Raiders, like where they hunt.
yeah,
So like he's got a bit of. Ooh, is he gonna make it home or not?
yeah. He
Um,
has to make crate dragon noises.
yeah. So yeah, Baru and Owen start shooting at Riva with their shotguns, which is a phrase I never thought I would say.
Yeah. So anyway, we started shooting at an Inquisitor with our shotguns.
Cut back to the duel with Obi-Wan and Vader, and Vader, Kenobi holds his own. Oh, forgot Kenobi does his little Sorasu
Yes.
stance. Um, and then so yeah, when they're fighting, Kenobi's holding his own, but then Vader does this little force quake thing, and he buries Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it says, "This is why you always fail." Um, sorry, I will get into more quotes later, but he's like, that's what he says. Um, we cut back to um, Riva makes her way past Owen, and they have the whole thing of like, you really care for this boy like he's your own, and then Owen's like, he is my own. She gets her past Baru, and then Luke is running off. She chases after him. Back to Kenobi. He's holding all these rocks above him, and he's thinking about all this failure with Anakin and how Anakin is um, so angry at him, and he's dwelling on the past. And then he thinks of Leia, and the future that can happen with her.
Mm-hmm.
And he pushes the rocks aside and he gets back up one last time.
Yes.
And then he goes back after Vader. And I mean, there's no other way to say this. Lifting rocks.
And just
He,
chucking them at him.
yeah, he does his whole like stance with the rocks, and then he just starts throwing them at him. Um,
Hmm.
and then he duels a bit more with Vader. He does this like butt of the lightsaber punch to the ventilator uh, control panel thing, which is like a target if you've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Let's put all
and
the
then he
controls for your
manages,
breathing apparatus on your chest. No one will ever think to aim there.
and then he manages to cut the left eye portion of Vader's samurai helmet, exposing the left side of Anakin's face,
Mm-hmm.
Hayden Christensen's face. Um, and then we get some wonderful lines. Um, Obi-Wan tells Anakin, "I'm so sorry," and Anakin is like, "Man, I thought I had it remembered." Okay, he
I don't know what he said.
says
He basically said it's okay. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. And
he didn't say. Well, he didn't say it in like a "don't feel bad about yourself." He's
I
still
know.
like an
No.
"f
Yeah.
you" sort of thing,
Yeah.
but it's like, yeah. But he says, "I'm not your failure."
Yeah.
um, which reframes it in a lot of ways for Kenobi. Um, it's weird how it does sound like that's encouraging because Kenobi does need to hear that it's Anakin's own choice. Um, but yeah, Anakin saying, "I'm not this fallen apprentice that you were in control of because I was in control of my choices. I am choosing this."
Yeah. I also got like really
We
emotional.
can't.
Okay. We'll go on to it later.
And then I Um, on second watch, I filled in the blanks wrongly. Um, Kenobi says goodbye, Darth. I thought he was gonna say goodbye, old friend, and I was like, wait a minute, yeah, he did say goodbye, Darth. But
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking goodbye, old friend, because of Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get this sort of cross cutting between Riva almost finding Luke, and then Kenobi sensing that, and then um Reva does like she like force pushes him, I think, and he falls or he trips or something like that, and he's unconscious. And she has this lightsaber right over him, much like Luke in Last Jedi. And then she sees herself instead of him, and she holds up her lightsaber. We cut back. Kenobi returns to Owen and Beru, and he's trying to help them find him. And then Beru spots Reva holding Luke in her arms, unconscious, and Owen takes him back. And then Reva has a little conversation with Kenobi, another alternate podcast name.
Conversation with Kenobi. Yeah.
Um, and then Reva talks about how, um, all those Anakin killed all those younglings, and she could not get justice. She failed them. But Kenobi says, by showing mercy, you have given them peace.
Mm-hmm.
And then she asks, "Have I become him, Vader?" And Kenobi says, uh, "Man, what do you say? You have."
No.
What was the quote? Look that up. We'll talk about it later.
I got you.
But basically, the like you don't have to bring it up immediately. Just later. And he says, basically she's grown beyond that. And then we go back to Mustafar with Vader, and Vader is talking about he's just told Palpatine the contents of his last adventure. Vader's got his new suit, and Palpatine is like, "You seem agitated, my friend." Um, and Kenobi or Vader basically is like, "Nope, I can put these feelings aside. I serve only you, Palpatine, or only you, my master." And then we end on the Imperial March. More on that later.
I have the
Then we
quote
go
when
to
you're ready.
then we go to Alderaan. Put it on the back burner. Then we
Gotcha.
go to Alderaan. Call back to the first season with our first episode with Leia getting dressed, except it's actually her now.
Mm-hmm.
She's got the boots, she got the white gown, the holster, the braids, the gloves that Kenobi bought her. Her holster is over her dress, like Tala.
Yeah.
And then Brea is like, "Is that a holster?" And Leia was like, "Yep." And she's like, "I like it." And then they go to meet someone, like the first episode, like they're visiting someone's coming to visit. Bale sees the holster and he's like, "Snazzy." Um, and Leia is like, "If I'm gonna keep doing this, being a princess, I want to change some things." And Bale's like, "We'll change things together." And then she's like, "Who?" And she's like, "Who are we seeing? Cousins?" And Bale's like, "Not exactly." And it's Kenobi, which
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised she didn't recognize the ship because she's so good at spotting ships, but
Yeah.
it's fine. Um, and then yeah, Kenobi and Leia have a reunion. She, he asks what should he do next, and she's like, "You should sleep." And then he laughs for the first time in a decade.
Yeah.
And then he tells her that she is wise, kind, and another adjective because of her mother. Those are
Mm-hmm.
traits from her mother. And then she is passionate, fearless, and forthright. And those are qualities from her father.
Yeah.
Both of those make her what she is. And Leia is okay with that explanation because she has Bale and Brea.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenobi doesn't even stay for dinner. And then he leaves and goes back to Tatooine.
So he can pack up
And
his
he talks
house.
he talks to oh yeah, he packs up his house, um, puts on all these little gear things,
Mm-hmm.
has a new Jedi robe, a white Jedi robe, much more elegant as Obi-Wan. And he goes to Owen, and Owen is like, "Hey, I thought you were gonna keep your distance." And Kenobi's like, "I will." Um, and you were right, Owen. He just needs to be a boy. And um, they say goodbye, but then Owen says, "Do you want to meet him?" And then Owen or Ben, yeah, that's what he is now. He's been in for a little bit of the show, but never mind. He brings the Skyhopper toy towards Luke. Luke has no sense of stranger danger and smiles at him. Um, Meanwhile, I think Leia would have like had her a blaster drawn or fists at least
Yeah.
ready. But Luke's just like, "Hi."
Like, sup,
um,
homie?
and he's bringing the Skyhopper over, and then he says, "Hello there."
He does this
And
thing. He says the thing.
then we cut away. He's riding his EOP through the Junlin Wastes, I think is what they're called.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Beggars Canyon. Beggars Canyon.
Yeah.
Um, and he sees Qui-Gon with his back turned to him. And he's like, Qui-Gon's like, "Took you long enough."
It took
And
you
then
long enough.
was beginning to think you would never come. And Qui-Gon was always there. It was just whether or not Kenobi was ready. And they have a ways to go, and they journey off into the canyon.
Yeah.
And that's how we end season one. Oh, I did. Okay, we'll get into my opinions about how this operation is running. But I do I probably shouldn't have said season one, because it's Kenobi. It's just Kenobi.
Yeah, it's okay.
Um, but yeah, I still managed to make a longer synopsis, even though
It's
my
about
notes
20
are
minutes.
just like three-word phrases and commas.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but
We're
yeah,
we're gonna start. There's a lot.
and the podcast starts now.
Yes. 20 minutes in, 25 minutes in, the podcast now starts. Um, I don't know, man. I do have that. I have that quote though from earlier about Reva talking to Kenobi. If you would like it, it as a yes. So the quote is, "Have I become him? No, you have chosen not to. Who you become now, that is up to you." And then he says, "Now you're free. We both are."
We both are. Yes, which
Yes.
is the most explicit depiction of them as dual protagonists in this show, which I've been writing
Yes.
about since first episode, maybe even the preview episode.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, let's talk about Redemption. This is what I wanted to text you when I thought you had seen the episode. I just wanted to text you Redemption.
You so you kind of called it. You were like last episode, you were like, she's gonna get a cool sweater and she's gonna get a new hairdo, and she got both of them. She came into
Well,
frame and I was like, Christian called it. Like she's wearing basically a black sweater. Like it looks
it
very
was
Ben.
like it was a heavy robe, I think.
Yeah, but when her hood is down, it looks very Ben Solo esque. And then she had a new hairdo, and it was like, okay,
Yeah, I guess it was closer to like Kylo Ren than Ben Solo,
either way.
but she's still operating within that framework. She is very much like a uh similar path as
Oh yeah,
Ben Solo. And
but now this time she
I
survived.
love her character, and it's always like a bittersweet thing when you get a new character post Tross that ticks those boxes. I guess it's the only time this has happened, but like in this era, anytime we get something I want to latch on to because it's so good, it's always bittersweet because it's like, are they gonna? They didn't do that with Ben Solo. They might way in the future, but it is that sort of thing of like, why couldn't we be doing this just perfect arc earlier
Yeah,
in the main movies? But I'm so happy that they did this with their character. Um, it didn't I because I'm so anxious on a first watch. I was very unsure still, even though I
hmm
knew it was coming. I think I wanted a lot of good Reva scenes as opposed to just one decision and then one conversation.
hmm
But after watching it a second time, the last like 25 minutes of this episode, I feel like are just really, really good Star Wars.
yeah,
Really, really, really good Star Wars character work
hmm
and philosophy. I'm always going to hone in. This is what I love about the show. I most times out of 10, I will did not really like the production value of the show. But anyway, Reva, she brings Luke back, and it looks exactly like Anakin bringing Shmi back
hmm
to Owen and Beru. And I got it on my first watch. I was like, oh, this feels exactly like that, and it's the inverse because she chose not to act in revenge.
yeah,
And Owen is seeing a Force user. I mean, Owen knows Kenobi, but Owen is seeing someone with this dark Force power that chose not to kill.
hmm
It doesn't make him any more of an optimist, but like I don't know,
yeah,
seeing that the good side and the bad side from his perspective, I guess, and Baru as well.
yeah.
Um, what do you think? What do you think about Redemption?
I really like it. And do you know what was going through my mind whenever she was chasing him with whenever she was chasing him, the thing that I thought the most of was he can't see her lightsaber. because that would be like a huge like retcon. Because like
Mhm.
the whole point is that he's never like the whole point of A New Hope is that he's never seen a lightsaber before, and so I was like, she better not pull that lightsaber on him, because like
It's
I
yeah,
I will be
very first
upset.
viewing thoughts.
Yeah, first viewing, I was like, she better not pull that lightsaber on him, because that will retcon like a whole conversation they had in A New Hope, and like Luke's whole point is that he's never seen a lightsaber or like he also had no idea what the Jedi was because he just like had no experience. And so I was like, if she does any kind of like force powers or lightsabering on him or around him, it'll ruin that whole part of A New Hope. And they didn't. The only time she pulled it was when he was passed out. And I was like, that's such the perfect way to have like the tension, which we all know nothing's going to happen because it's, we know Luke. But either way, it's a great way to have the tension while still being like, yeah, he's not allowed to see the lightsaber in the show. He's not allowed. So I don't know. I loved it. On second viewing, it's fantastic. But the first viewing, I was just freaking out the whole time. I was like, they better not. They better not do it.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. For as much as I like to be like to talk of myself as like a very feeling first viewer of Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
I can't turn off those thoughts. Every
Yeah,
first viewing, I
I
cannot
can't
help
either.
but think about that. And especially within like the last 15, 20 minutes of this episode where it's like they're kind of closing the gaps sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're thinking like, okay, there's going to be some sort of like callback or payoff. We know we're getting Qui-Gon, we're getting Hello There, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was exhausting, figuring out
Yeah.
not only when each thing comes, but also like, am I going to be satisfied? It was much better second viewing, knowing what's coming and just sort of seeing how it flows as its
Yeah.
own
Well, and I had gotten
thing.
spoiled that he said hello there already, which, yeah, okay, that's so stupid that we're worried about two words that Kenobi only said once, and it's a meme, and that's the reason that it's like, did he
He
say
said
it?
it in A New Hope as well.
Oh, that's right, he did. Um,
That's the whole thing is that like the meme kind of started when George Lucas chose to bring it back in the prequels.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
but I'd been spoiled that he said that, and I saw what he was wearing. So like when he showed up, I was like, "Oh, this is the scene when he's gonna say hello there." And I spent the entire scene not actually worrying about what he was saying to Owen, and more just like, when is he like, why is he gonna say hello there? Like, is he actually gonna talk to Luke? Is he gonna do blah blah blah? And then he said it, and I was like, "Oh, I don't really know what happened in that scene." And so upon second watch, like you said, it's much better because you're not like, oh, I know it's coming. When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? Is it going to be good? You're just like, let me just watch. I'm just going to
mhm.
watch. Which is probably backwards from most people. I think most people probably view the first viewing as a let me just sit back and watch, and then they go in depth on the second one. I thought you and I are kind of opposite.
Well, it depends on how invested in everything as a whole. Not
Mm-hmm.
everyone has this sort of like catalog of other stories that they're comparing everything to.
Yeah.
Not everyone knows how shots are framed in other movies or like
Mm-hmm.
bits of canon that like are rattling around their mind. They just
Mm-hmm.
most people probably take it as its own story. Um, so we also do a podcast about it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. We're always kind of thinking of podcast stuff. Like as much as I try not to, I'm always thinking like, how am I going to talk about this on the podcast whenever I'm seeing things?
mm,
Like I have such a problem with it, and I'm like, I need to stop. Like, oh, I can't wait to
that
talk
does
about
bring up
this
that does
later.
bring up a bit of a like one of my very vague broad critiques that I have,
Mm-hmm.
um, sort of trying to understand the bit of cynicism or disappointment I have with this is that I feel like it was made for us, but not for anyone else.
Yeah,
I don't. This isn't. I don't feel like it's daring enough to bring in new viewers.
yeah. I now that you
Think
mention
of
it,
that as a production values thing. I don't,
yeah,
or even just like a prestige TV thing, like it's not like so captivating as a like must see TV thing that like people are talking about this show who are just interested in good stories. I
Yeah,
feel like it only works as a puzzle piece for people who know the metatext.
I agree. Unless I think there's one, I agree. And now that you mention it, I can see that it's kind of like all the things that we think are cool and are great about this show are great because of how it fits with other stuff that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Except for really Reva. Reva is like the one new like cool thing. And I think that plays into I think the one group of people that I think would get a lot from maybe seeing this as the first thing that they've ever seen in Star Wars would be not the nerd dudes who are getting into it for the first time, but like I don't know, the little girls who see Leia and they're like, yeah, that's dope. Like I don't know, they can relate with Leia and just being a young girl who has to listen to her mom and has to listen to her dad and being bossed around by people, and they're like, no, she's cool. Like I don't know, and Reva's dope, and even Baru gets her moment when she's like, I'm fighting for this home. And then Baru just goes nuts on Reva. So, you know,
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and that like Obi-Wan is this like mentor character defined by his relationship to Luke in the originals,
mm-hmm,
and then sort of like to Anakin with the prequels, even though he's a bit more autonomous. He's very much the central point of this show, but there is a lot of space given to Leia, to where if that's your entry point, you could see yourself in Leia, and like not
mm-hmm,
like you still know Kenobi's the main character, but like in the way that whoever you latch onto, you sort of center with that person, and everyone else sort of
yeah,
revolves around your person.
mm-hmm,
Um, which yes, that's a. I think you started for bringing up that positive aspect of this sort of audience thing. Um,
anytime.
okay, even yeah, reminded me that Star Wars is for 12-year-olds. Um,
Yeah, I was about to say Star Wars is technically for 12-year-olds. So, like,
um,
but bro, they chopped a dude in
I don't know.
half in this show.
I think what I'm working through is like initially I was like writing off any resistance to this show, and then eventually it just sort of I absorbed it in a way that's like, oh, I can't get around this. Some people just don't like this,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to understand why, and trying to empathize at least, not fully empathize, but just like get why they're not into it. I
You know
think
what I
production
also realized
value
they never
is
did?
a huge thing, um, but I think even at just like a base level, like what the identity of the show is, it's that it's always been for the fans. All the marketing, all the hype was always
Mm-hmm.
about the prequels are back, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't. It's even the Force Awakens was like we're starting new, as it was appealing to fans, but it was also starting new.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and it's I don't think have I always thought this? I don't know if this is a new opinion that like I care about new people discovering this stuff.
Do you care about new people discovering Star Wars?
I haven't
I don't think we've
talked about it
ever.
a whole
I don't think we've
or
ever
I haven't
blatantly talked about it.
I don't think I've used it as a metric of like how good something is,
Yeah.
because we're at this point where like everyone can sort of have their own version of Star Wars now. But at the same time it still kind of feels homogenized because it's all fitting into this picture. Um I don't know. I think okay, Mandalorian did bring no, Mandalorian brought in new people, and that was another sort of new
For sure.
Renaissance sort of thing. Um,
Well,
I
the
don't know.
last thing that I'll
It's
say,
weird. It's like
yeah,
people. I don't know. I feel like this is also sort of selfish in a way, because it's like it's fine that people are turning off. Like, what do I
yeah.
care? This is still relevant.
Well, and the last thing that I'll say before we move on to more positives about the show is I think that another thing that struggles with it being for, people who already like it is the fact that they never really describe who the Inquisitors are. So like if you've never seen, let's say like you're one of those people
Paula
who
does.
Tala does.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, but one other thing is if you've never
And
seen,
I mean, the Grand Inquisitor makes his whole speech at the first episode.
yeah, but also there's the problem where like if you've never seen, I've seen so many people who, I've even had somebody like I think somebody mentioned this at one point to me, is like they're one of those people who have not seen the cartoons and they've only seen the live action stuff, and so they're like, why in the world did this dude come back? He got stabbed in the chest, and it's like you don't understand. He had to come back like canonically. like like why did he come back? It's stupid. And I was like, he had plot armor. Not actually. That's not
No,
the reason, but but you get the point. Like people were
but
like
that's the thing.
upset.
That's the, like there's such a complicated lore history with this stuff that like
Mm-hmm.
there's never a simple answer for anything.
No.
And you can't expect everyone to have the patience for that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's why people dwell on the logic and the plot. And sometimes they rely on like scientific explanations of any sort of like gap in understanding of canon.
Yeah.
Um, this stuff is so dense, um,
Mm-hmm.
and just the amount of stuff out there that
Sometimes
not everyone the patience doesn't rise to the top.
no, and sometimes I forget just how nerdy people like us are and how much we
And
know.
jobless for a while, you have to be joblessness is a requirement.
Yes, and like how much we know about this stupid movie franchise. like
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we can basically see any character that's ever been on screen and tell you their name and their biography from everything we know in canon is really kind of sad when you think about it. But here we are talking about it on the internet. So,
Yeah, I think I was I don't want to dwell too much on this any further, but this sort of has to do with this like burnout of Star Wars. Like I don't feel like I want to watch that much anymore. Um, that I was talking to you about before the
yeah.
episode, and it's like interesting that this is corresponding with the week that I am making plans for the first time in a long time.
Hey man.
It's like, oh, I'm like going out and doing stuff now.
You're like leaving the state.
I don't have room for Star Wars.
Yeah, you're like leaving the state and everything. Yeah, man. Well, I think that I know that we started at the end of the episode, but let's work our way toward the front of the episode. I want to talk about the Vader and Kenobi fight, please, por favor.
But it's that I don't really know what to say. But what do you have any thoughts about how it works as a fight? Do you have like lightsaber fight opinions?
As a lightsaber fight opinion, I think it's a great. Yeah, and I was talking about this before the show started. That I think that this show needs to be a bridge and not a stepping stone. You remember my analogy, and I think that that also had to do with the way that lightsaber fights are conducted, especially between Obi-Wan and Vader. Because, and I mentioned this very briefly, the type of lightsaber fighting that we see in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin and Obi-Wan's duel in Revenge of the Sith, is very, very vastly different in style than the lightsaber fight that we see in A New Hope. Yes, that is because in A New Hope, they literally just did not have the technology to do anything cool. But now it's the lore. It's how it is. Whatever. Any of the people who like blame
It's
it all the time,
everything
don't
to
worry about
do
it.
with it's everything to do with character's age, the medium,
Yes.
whether it's the 70s, who knows if this is going to work in a movie or capping off to a saga, big budget
Yes.
thing,
But now there are
and
in-universe
who the
explanations.
Jedi, yeah, like what's the state of the Jedi?
Yes.
Yes.
So I always was like, this show has to show has to show an in-between stage of crazy flips, lightsaber spins, da da da, and the more samurai style of very intentional hits, slow, steady stage fighting of the 70s. And I think it perfected it because They're not
Yeah.
jumping around. They're not doing anything crazy. And this is probably, it's very, I don't know, some of it is just very samurai, in the ways that they're going past each other with their hits, like fully just like, they go in for the strike and then they slide while not facing each other again, just like very samurai moves in here. And I think it's the perfect middle ground between the prequels and the OT. And I think it like very much bridged the gap of the style of lightsaber fighting. And I know that's a super nitpicky thing that like, but I love it.
It's important.
It's
You
great.
just did the same thing for lightsabers what I did for the Naboo starfighter in the Book of Boba Fett episode.
Yeah, it's great. I
um,
loved it.
I think the what's key to this bridge is that the camera is mobile,
Mm-hmm.
probably even more so than Revenge of the Sith, but Revenge of the Sith definitely had a little bit more mobile camera.
Yeah.
But the fight stays grounded
Mm-hmm.
because of Vader's limitations and Kenobi's limitations. Um, and it doesn't need to feel quite as operatic as Battle of the Heroes.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's got a bit more of a documentary style, a lot of shaky cam, a lot of. I liked the shot where it was sort of peering around the rock, and they're like very tiny on the screen.
Yeah.
Um, I like the new visual identity. I don't. None of it bothers me,
Mm-mm.
but it's also not what grabs me about this show. I think because of the time that you're able to commit this, I would be okay with people talking the entire time. I
Well,
kind of
and
wanted more conversation
yeah,
because of the format, some of the canon constrictions, and it could be a bit of a burnout thing where like lightsabers don't impress me anymore, and I just want people to talk about their feelings.
yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at right now.
I
Because
think
like
that's just
it
us
doesn't
growing up.
rub me the wrong way, and I like the choices being made, at least most of them. And at least we do get to have those punches, that
Yes.
great I killed Anakin sort of thing.
Well, and I was about to say like as much as I absolutely loved the lightsaber fight, and I will nerd out about how well it bridges the gap and forever because it did. I think even the short conversation that Obi-Wan and Anakin had is so much more important to the story and is so much better than the lightsaber fight. For so many ways. Um, one quick like, just super like poetic like callback to Rebels and also Revenge or Return of the Jedi. You've probably seen this. A lot of people have seen it. It's been circulating, but someone noticed, and it's pretty obvious that in Rebels, Ahsoka cuts off Vader's left side of his helmet. Right, or the right side of his helmet. She sees his right eye and gets the reveal of Anakin. In Obi-Wan takes off the left side of Obi-Wan's helmet, or of I can't speak, of Anakin's helmet, and reveals the left side of his face. Neither of them could fully redeem Anakin as much as they wanted, but Luke was able to remove the whole thing and finally get the Vader redemption at the end. And I think that's so poetic, and it's great, and I love it. And oh my gosh, it was so good.
We
Such a
talked about
nerd.
this last week, how like Return of the Jedi slept on because so many roads lead back to it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's kind of the heart of Star Wars.
yeah, man.
But yeah, that's all I have to say.
I didn't even realize it until I saw it online. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so good. And they did it on purpose. It's not one of those like, oh, accidental, now it's lore type things. Like, no, like this was done on purpose. It is a direct callback to Rebels and Return of the Jedi. It's just, oh,
Mhm. But if you haven't seen Rebels, it functions as its own thing.
yes,
It's just a
exactly.
parallel that's always. It's like one of those things that's always there if you want to find it, but it
Mm-hmm.
works well on its own.
Yep.
Also, Kenobi withdraws his lightsaber. It's off screen, but Kenobi's face goes from blue to gray, and then we cut the reverse shot back to Vader, and the blue. It goes from blue and red mix to just red,
Mm-hmm.
really emphasizing to Kenobi, this is just who he is now.
Well, and I
From him on.
love the decision to merge Hayden and James Earl Jones's voices.
Again, well,
Like
Matt Lantern Rebels, actually. But yes, the same sort of technique.
the same sort of thing where they're merging their voices so you can hear Hayden Christensen at times, coming out the helmet, but you can also hear the classic Vader voice coming out. And it's so sad. Like this is the moment in this episode that I got super emotional watching it for the first time. I stopped caring about this is the one point in the episode that I stopped caring about how it was made. I stopped caring about the behind the scenes. I stopped caring about the podcast. It was just in that moment, I was just in it. And I was like, this is so sad. And his face is lit up blue by Obi-Wan's lightsaber, and it's like you could feel it. Like you can feel that he's almost there. He's not fully like you as a viewer, you
He's
can
lying to
feel.
himself.
Yes, you can feel the conflict in Vader watching it that he denies for the entire trilogy of the OT that's there. And then he pulls the red lightsaber and turns his whole face red. And it's like, oh, the cinematography of the show is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, but then Obi-Wan believes it. That's what's ultimately sad at the end of the day is that Obi-Wan believes that Anakin is too far gone.
I think it's we'll talk about that later. I'm sorry, I can't go into it. Don't want to forget what I'm gonna say. So I had the same sort of journey. I was like for the second watch, I was doing all these notes to make sure I was got every scene in order and so that I could do the synopsis. I just forgot about my phone during that portion of the episode. Yeah. What I was saying earlier about how this sort of my big takeaway for this episode and the show as a whole is what it does to elaborate on key themes and ideas throughout the Star Wars big saga, whatever, as a whole. And I said for better or worse. We talked about for worse. This is for now. We're going to talk about for better, because it's such a good in-depth illustration of why the dark side is bad, why Anakin is choosing to be Darth Vader, and why that is so harmful to himself, and why it's a lie. It's all based on desperate attempts at lying to himself to ease the pain. Because he's not even focused on like being Darth Vader, the job title, I guess. It's still like this personal rage.
It's still just a vendetta against Obi-Wan. And it's hard to tell if he even remembers why he wants Obi-Wan dead. Because
I think this is where I acknowledge I have no interest in reading the Vader comics. I'm sorry. It seems hypocritical that I'm interested in the stuff on this show coming out, but I just don't want to. I never wanted to read those.
Yeah.
But he's trimming the branches of his past. And we see that even the Grand Inquisitor is like, bro, you've got to stop. And again, in chapter 5, sort of flashback sequence, using that to illustrate how he wants to be on top and showing how he can do that. But then in this fight with Obi-Wan, he's lying to himself. He was saying to Obi-Wan, "This is why you always fail." But Kenobi he won that fight, and he won on Mustafar. Like, and just in general, Kenobi beat him in the flashback fight. Kenobi wins a lot too.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, Kobe's soul has endured so much. At every turn in Kenobi's journey, Kenobi had the chance to turn dark. He could have turned dark when Qui-Gon died, when Satine died. He could have matched Anakin's darkness in Revenge of the Sith. Obi-Wan could have been enraged when Ahsoka was expelled. And so many opportunities Kenobi chose the light because it's the light. Um, and Vader has this warped perception of success and failure. That he thinks succeeding is power over your enemies and showing no mercy. Vader. So Vader is fighting back at Kenobi, and he's lying to himself, thinking that he is powerful, that he is the top dog. But at the end, he still serves Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
He still has to go, I only serve you, my master. Which, like, totally contradicts what he's saying to himself and to Reva in Chapter 5.
Yeah.
Where he's like, you're just a youngling, I'm the master. And, like, I've finally gotten what I thought I deserved in that flashback.
Mm-hmm.
It's so depressing that it's causing him so much pain and anguish. And before I let you reflect on that, this also echoes Solo, a Star Wars story, because Kira is like, everybody serves somebody.
Yeah.
And Kira ends up having to serve Maul and doesn't have that starry-eyed hope that Han Solo has, and she survives. It's a bit different. She's not as dark as Vader. Her story is very worthy. She's still very much a good person in her own way, but she still is like this, like, it's kind of very influenced by this sort of toxic Sith power structure sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's so that parallel.
Yeah, I think that, we always predicted that this show is going to make us watch the OT and other Star Wars properties differently than we've ever seen them before. And I think that the two biggest things that I will never watch the same way again are anything that involves Obi-Wan and Leia together. The one that's been circulating has been when Luke rescues Leia from the cell block, and he goes, "I'm here with Ben Kenobi," and she goes, "Ben Kenobi," and then rushes past Luke just so that she can find Kenobi. And it's like, that's so sweet now that we know, and but also just Vader as a whole is just a shell of a man at this point. Like, and especially when you then move even more years in the future and you get to A New Hope, and you're like, wow, he must be just like, and like, it makes it so much more sad to see his story. I don't know how to explain it. It makes him seem like such more of a sad character, but then it also makes his redemption that much better at the end.
Yeah. Because in the original trilogy, he's operating as a movie villain. It's part of the action that you fear him, especially in Empire. He's this sort of avatar for fear.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thematic thing in that movie. And, like, you don't get how pitiful it is. I feel like you understand the logic of how he behaves in this show. Like, it's made like, you can read into it with either the comics or just your own interpretation of, like, I don't know, Joseph Campbell's stuff or whatever about why evil is evil. But we see it play out in the show. He looks pitiful.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, I feel like in some ways, you know what? I'm getting more respect for the show. This is a contradiction of the fan interpretation of Vader as this badass slasher villain, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it is literally reframing it as like, no, do not look at villain characters as solely these action driven, like, cool cut, like,
it's badasses. The whole thing.
These are who you do not want to in any way aspire to. Not that you can't buy merch or whatever, not you can't buy a helmet, but, like, understand what makes evil.
Yeah, it's and this sounds so silly, but it's the same thing as when people are like, the reason that kids bully other kids is because their home life is not great either. And it's like that whole thing where it's like the kids who bully kids are probably have pretty not, having a great time. And that's why they take it out on other people. And like this is just a very high scale version of that. You know, Anakin's not doing great emotionally, physically, mentally. He's not doing well. And
Mm-hmm. Well, it's likely what we get with Reva, like you are what you choose to be in the future.
mm-hmm.
It's all a choice, and you can make different choices as you go along.
This might be some of the best piece of Star Wars media that we've seen since like The Last Jedi.
I don't know if I go that far.
Oh no, Mando's pretty good. Mando's pretty good.
I don't know where I stand because I think.
Well, I think the only other thing that competes is Mando.
I know. Sometimes I go back and forth because it's sometimes what I think of Star Wars is like what's important about Star Wars as like I think of it as like the ideas and themes are so rich. That's the biggest thing. Sometimes I'm like the genre, the filmmaking is the most important thing. So like I don't know where to stand because I feel like this is more thematically coherent than Mandalorian, which is kind of all over the place sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But the Mandalorian as like a genre storytelling vehicle is so on point.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas I feel like Last Jedi had both of those nailed down.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yes, this is a very interesting new era of Star Wars. That I'm very grateful that we have this show.
I will probably
we surprisingly have talked. I feel like a lot of episodes have happened like this where we talked about Kenobi the least. He's like our least discussed character on this show.
Well, I think that's because Kenobi is just a catalyst for change for every other character that he comes across, and he was that way in the. I mean, he's always been that way though. Kenobi really in Clone Wars, when you really think about it, there's not a huge amount of character development that like there is in certain arcs, but as a whole, the person that Kenobi is at the beginning of the series and the person that Kenobi tries to be at the end of the series is not hugely different. Mm-hmm. He's still after the same things, but he changes every.
Clone Wars is another bridging sort of thing.
Yeah. But the thing is that Kenobi changes every person he comes in contact with and is a catalyst for good in every single aspect.
Which is why I think some people were shocked by the show because we got to see a version of him that he wasn't influencing for the better.
Yeah.
And like, it's taken only a few weeks in our time for us to show that transformation. And it's like he never left. We're like, oh yeah, this is Kenobi. But like there were a solid 2 weeks where he was not doing well, and not doing good. Those are two different things. He's not feeling well. He's not doing good.
Yeah.
So he's catalyzing people for sure, but he's also worked out his demons, worked out his trauma. He's been reborn. He has seen the past. He's seen the future. And
I think that this show. And now that looking back after watching the show to Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, this show is the only reason that it makes sense for the man that Kenobi is at the end of Revenge of the Sith to be the same man that helps Luke to then become a new Jedi. Because, now think about if this show had never existed. And it's like, yeah, no, the dude at the end of Revenge of the Sith is now, he went into hiding. He's a depressed old man. He just failed the Jedi. Why in the world would this guy?
Because he looks at the binary sunset and like feels his beard, that means he turns into Alec Guinness? No.
Yes. Yeah, why in the world would this guy ever want to rebuild the Jedi Order? Like no, why? But this show perfectly contextualizes why, and I love it. It's great.
Let's talk about lifting rocks.
Lifting rocks.
Take on this. Another reason why I love The Last Jedi is that it starts as this lifting rocks starts as this like Rey's impression of what a Jedi does. It's like, oh, they're powerful. They lift things and throw them.
It's also like one of the
That's a
first things we
Jedi.
ever saw Luke lift.
Yes, that's true. Ah, man, I forgot how well that connects.
Yeah, it's like the
Because
first thing Luke ever lifted, other than his
because Ray,
lightsaber.
because Ray has seen the original trilogy. Um,
Yeah, she has.
it's like that's her idea. Like, oh yeah, Jedi lift rocks.
Yeah.
And then Luke was like, no, that's not what it's about. But then she, at the climax of the Last Jedi, lifts rocks to
Lifts
save her
rocks.
friends.
Yeah.
And it's like, in my head, it's like, oh yeah, lifting rocks is like, yeah, it's not what's actually important. It's this caricature. It's what you think when you actually don't know anything about the Force. But then, it's like it's around the time Luke is doing his symbolic sacrifice, showing the galaxy how much of a hero he is. Rey at the same time is lifting rocks. It's the same thing. You as a Jedi are doing this power because of how it affects other people.
Mm-hmm.
You have this power to be not a godlike symbol, but a symbol of for us fans, illustrative symbols of what it's like to be a good person.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is all about. We need that vision of Rey lifting rocks because it helps us as we go about our days. As all this oppression and terrible stuff is going around us, how can we affect other people? So that's why I love that they did this in Kenobi.
Yeah.
Now, it was kind of used as an action beat. It looked less of a peace and purpose thing and more of a pew 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 sort of thing.
It kind of reminded
But
me
it's
of
still
Thanos
Kenobi coming
chucking a
into his
planet.
own. It's still Kenobi coming into his own, and like it's right after he has this vision of Leia and what the future can hold.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's still holding that within himself of like, this is what I'm fighting. I'm fighting for the future. I'm doing this. I am going to do what I must. Spencer, you know what time it is?
10:25.
It's Pop-Tart time. I need to go fix a Pop-Tart. Can I come back later?
You can, and we'll pause the recording and pick it up here in a minute. All right, so now that Christian has his Pop-Tart, I will tell you the one small goof that has been pointed out. I don't know if this is considered a goof or not, but I think this is funny to point out, is that either Obi-Wan was just really, like, in the first couple episodes of the season, was just really playing it off that he didn't know that Anakin was Vader, or they just like, or he just has a really terrible memory, because there's a whole scene where he's watching a hologram of Anakin and Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith, and Palpatine goes, "Rise, Lord Vader." So, like, that doesn't really seem like a name that you would forget, Lord Vader. So, I don't know. I don't care, but it's been pointed out a lot that Kenobi definitely knew that Anakin was called Vader. And
yeah, but how do we know that he on Tatooine had any knowledge of Darth Vader roaming around the galaxy?
that's true.
Because the reveal when Reva says it to him, she says Anakin's alive.
Oh, that's true. Never mind. That's true. I didn't even think about that.
Not all the characters have an awareness of the iconic characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting question, especially because I think Revenge of the Sith had a lot of reshoots, and I think that was one of those things that like was changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just in general, a lot of dialogues sort of change every now and then.
Yeah.
But I do have one more thing that I want to talk about, and that's the whole Anakin is dead thing.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier the parallel of like goodbye. Wait, did I? The goodbye old friend or goodbye Darth.
Yes. Yeah.
Obi-Wan saying that, which connects to earlier in this episode where he's like Qui-Gon, or he says Master. He says, Master, I'm going to do this whether he dies or I die.
Yeah.
And it seems like, oh, he's going to kill him or he's going to be killed. But there's a third way, you know? And
yeah.
I was thinking about this a few days ago. Like, going beyond these binaries of like, you either are powerful and you're subduing your enemy or you are losing.
Yeah.
All he wants to know is Anakin still there for me? or is he gone?
Yeah.
Anakin saying, I killed, or Vader saying, I killed Anakin. And that's the answer Obi-Wan knows. And he is changing what victory means.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cherry picking a little bit from Joseph Scrimshaw, for center. Joseph Scrimshaw, in his coverage of the show, started saying this phrase of changing the conditions for victory, which I think is a really good way of looking at, especially Obi-Wan, but Jedi in general.
Mm-hmm.
And for Obi-Wan to choose to focus on the future, he gets closure on the past. He finds out that Vader is not willing, like he can't get through to Vader. It's way beyond Kenobi to think of a conception of how Luke or anyone else can get through to Vader.
Mm-hmm.
He just needs to know. And that's the middle way or the third way. It's not just about defeating him or sacrificing his own life. Which it took me a while to get to this because a little bit after my first watch, I was like, Kenobi could have saved a lot of trouble if he killed Vader, right? But
yeah,
I love that we see another illustration of what violence and what vengeance does. Is that like once you take that step, you are not the same person, and it destroys you. Killing in that way destroys you.
Yeah.
And you know, so yeah, Kenobi could have ended a lot of Imperial rule, I guess, but he needed
Nah,
to
Palpatine would have done it
defend his
anyway. He just would have
principles.
made the Grand Inquisitor his new top guy.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not about what could have happened, what could have been logical, easier. It's about the true choice,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I don't know. Does it make any sense?
You do make sense. I have one more thing to say about the fight, and that is, I will do what I must. And that was so sad. That was another really sad line when he just repeated, I will do what I must. And I had to go back because I couldn't remember if he said that or if Anakin said that in the original fight.
I'm surprised he didn't do another version of taking off his robe.
Yeah. I had to remember if he said it or if Anakin said it in the original fight, but then yeah, so he said it in both fights. He said, "I'll do what I must." Oh man.
And to bring in a New Hope, which, by the way, would be great if we can find time in the next few weeks to do a bonus week in Okinawa just about a New Hope.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, that line of like, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And it's the whole vibe of him sacrificing his life has always struck such mystery in Star Wars as a whole. It's part of the reason why people have stuck with it since 1977. With what we have now, it's like, oh, that's because that's the conclusion of an arc that happened before any of the previous story of Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to rewatch that again and really feel that this is that conclusion for him, but also seeing it within the context of this is what started it all.
Yeah.
It's
also,
a trippy thing.
Also, what I want to know after watching the show, why in the heck would he take Luke to go rescue Princess Leia? Why in the world would he do that? Because the whole point is like part of the whole point of this show is that he wants Luke to stay on Tatooine. He doesn't want anything to happen to Luke. Luke has to stay by himself and not like eventually he says the boy must be trained eventually, but he also wants to keep Luke and Leia separate. So why the heck would he take him to try to go save her? I was like, what?
Let's find out.
Yeah.
I think the time came, you know?
Yeah.
Another thing. He needs to just be a boy. Feels so right because that's what should have been Anakin all along.
Mm-hmm.
Luke kind of, I guess I've thought about maybe this a little bit before, of Luke sort of having what Anakin deserved to have.
Yeah.
But seeing Obi-Wan make that conscious choice, you know,
And I
of
think Luke is like
not that I'm anti kids being in the Jedi Order, but with this situation, with this freaking bloodline, um, in these circumstances, Luke needed to know a normal life, um, and how to grow up and be a good person, and then come into his power,
yeah.
and then have his parents incinerated, and so he doesn't have any attachments to go back to.
Yeah, well, also I think that not that we talk about this a lot. Not that Luke always made the right decision when it came to like anything he really ever did. But I think that Luke is the example of if Anakin made the right decision in Revenge of the Sith. Luke was tempted with it.
Healthy attachment, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
choosing the light in the end, even if it's to not make great decisions later. But you get like he took too much. I think he took
well,
too
yeah, okay.
too much out of Obi-Wan's
If
book.
you're talking about
So
Mando, Book of Boba Fett, Luke, that's a liturgical issue. That's an orthodoxy. We can have a theological debate on it. He's still a good guy.
he's still a good guy.
That's a denominational thing.
Yeah, exactly. But he still believes the same book, like he's fine. He's fine. But and then he, took one out of old Ben's book and went and put himself on a deserted island in the middle of nowhere. But um, but I think Luke is the perfect, like, if Anakin was allowed to just be a kid and then ultimately chose the light side over the dark side after being tempted, this is maybe what could have happened with Anakin. And yeah, I think we see that a lot more in this, just seeing the human side of Vader and just being like, oh yeah, like he's just a bad dude. Like, it's sad. But
Mm-hmm. Before we talk about Qui-Gon,
uh-huh.
let's close up some of the arcs for other characters.
Yeah.
Tala, even though she's not in this episode, her holster is given to Leia, and that's what we see here in A New Hope. I said earlier that she wears it over her dress, like Tala. Pretty cool that Tala is like the model of a rebel spy for Leia. That first exposure.
I forgot that Leia wears a holster in A New Hope.
Me too. I didn't. It wasn't until I saw an image that I was like, oh, that's what that is. For it's contributing more reasons to why Leia would call her son Ben.
Yeah, it is, and why her lightsaber looks similar to Obi-Wan's.
But yeah, I love that. I love that. Not only is Tala given a great arc, even in the sort of unfortunate, oh, we might not see her again because of her sacrifice, she's still present with Leia.
Yeah.
And is another sort of, example of, providing for the future, inspiring the future, but from a rebellion lens rather than a Jedi lens.
Yeah.
Haja, the pseudo Jedi, the Jedi impressionist.
Yeah.
What do you think about him returning by one last time to what was the funny thing he said? I forget.
I can't remember. Oh.
Leia needs space. She was like, I find she needs her space.
Yeah. I like that. I also love what's his name? Ice Cube's son.
Broken.
Yeah. I love him trying to talk Obi-Wan out of doing the thing. Out of him trying to start. He's like, no, we can save everyone. One thing that I was never really like, I never got, is everyone that's on that thing a Jedi?
Force sensitive, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Well, no, not. It's like AA, where it's like you can come or your family or someone if you're a family member. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like some families are hunted just because of one person that's force sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Roken leads it because his wife was force sensitive, but he
Yeah.
himself is not. Um, I don't think Sully was in this episode, but she's good. I forgot to mention. Well, no, I did. I did talk about the actress behind her. But Roken talking about, or Kenobi saying another, just Kenobi very encouraging. Just he's such a kind person. Kenobi saying that like you can lead and you should stay on with this. And Roken saying I'm just getting started. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hope he's doing stuff in the rebellion.
Yeah, man. He started the rebellion even if he doesn't know it.
What if they give him a dark arc, like a '90s comic book anti-hero, when he just like joins Saw Gerrera's group? He
Who,
gets like an
Roken or
eye
Obi-Wan?
patch. Roken.
Oh. I thought you meant Obi-Wan. I was like, that would be sick.
They're like, what? No, seriously. Like, Roken, like, has a bit of a dark spell. I mean, it's still rebellion, but like, he
Yeah.
joins Saw's group, and he's like, "It's no longer Roken, it's broken."
It's broken. That's so bad. Man, we could talk forever about this episode. And just this show as a whole. Ugh. What else have we not talked about yet?
We haven't talked about how Ewan McGregor should have taken a pay cut so that they could have like real sets.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned that in every episode of this show.
No, we talk about sets, but we haven't talked about Ewan McGregor pulling a Chris Bosh.
Pulling a
That's
Tom
what he should.
Brady.
Yeah, like, he
Tom
should have
Brady's the
done
best
that.
example. Tom Brady gets paid. He's like the lowest paid quarterback in the league. Yeah, I used to have a podcast about football. What of it? Yeah, no, that would have probably been for the best, but unfortunately.
Yeah. We're in a better spot. Our attitude's better, but it also does feel like you know, we have other things to chew on beyond our cynicism about
Yeah, I also
how
love
the sort of Disney Plus system is working.
Yeah, also one of my favorite things is that before we started this episode, you were like, I don't know if I want to watch Star Wars anymore for a while. Like I'm
I
kind
still
of
don't.
well, but like now you're a lot more up and energetic about this than you were.
Yeah. I once I finish Rebels, I'm gonna be watching things made for adults. So
Well, and except for the fact that we're going to be doing Resistance again.
oh man. Well, that's like I can do that with my hand behind my back. Like that's a simple. But you know what I mean? Like I was doing that when I was in a Star Wars mood. I was still powering through that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you also
Earlier.
all you do is sit there and listen to me gush about a show I've never seen before, so
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that I almost named my
I get
car
I
after.
get to be the Kronk. It's all coming together.
Yeah, I almost named my car after a show that I for years was like, I'm not going to watch this, and then you got me to watch. So, congratulations for you because you almost had me name my car after it.
Have you gotten the plate yet?
No.
Seem agitated, my friend.
Yeah, because I haven't got my Numa plate yet. Anyway, anything else?
Season 2 dilemma.
Yeah, what's up with season 2?
Okay, first let's talk about what's likely. They're probably going to do a season 2 about Kenobi and Qui-Gon.
Mm-hmm.
And
if it's only about that, I'm down.
Yeah, here's what I mean. I kind of thought that this show would be more weird Forcey stuff and more Qui-Gon heavy.
Yeah.
So it's weird to be like, no, don't give me that because I only want it to be a limited series. Well, what really bothers me is that I don't like when you say it's a limited series and then you make it unlimited.
Yeah.
Like we knew if the money was there, you were always going to come back. So like, why call it a limited series ever?
Well, it's the same thing that
Um,
Disney did with Moon Knight too, because they were like limited series, and then for the last episode, instead of, they kept marketing it as the series finale, and then right before the episode came out, they said, "All right, season finale comes out tomorrow," and it's like, oh, well,
yeah.
thanks for. Although I'm not upset about that one, but I don't know how I feel
Yeah.
about this.
But yeah, like I, I stick to my guns. Don't do it.
I agree.
I will make peace with the good stuff we got and savor the Qui-Gon and Tales of the Jedi, and I'll be fine with that. But it's likely that they'll do that. What I also think is that they'll probably lower the scale because you can't do the same sort of gap filling, which then means we're going to stay on Tatooine.
Again, for a whole season, I
So
think.
like, I don't. It's a trade off. It's like we could get some trippy force vision kind of things and training and stuff like that, which maybe occupies more time than Tatooine. Okay, what if he goes into the microbiotic world, like when George Lucas's sequels plan?
Oh my god.
Um, Never mind.
I think
Okay.
that I wish we would have had a little bit more Qui-Gon stuff, maybe, like in the first two episodes or something. But now at this point, I feel like it's such a good ending spot for bridging the gap that one, I'm okay with the mystery of, oh, he and Qui-Gon did some cool Forcey stuff, and that made it to where Obi-Wan could become one with the Force, you know. But also, I don't want there to be a whole new season where we just basically forget that he just went through all this. Because you know that if we do another season, there's a very low chance that we get more Leia, more Reva, and it's like we're just gonna forget about all that in the second. Like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want it. Like,
Um, I think you know Vivian Lyra Blair and the kid who played Luke are on like a three show, three movie, whatever kind of deal.
mm-hmm.
Like, not surprised at all.
Yeah,
Um, I hope their life is good. Is all I'm saying. Uh,
I hope they don't get a Jake Lloyd type situation.
yeah. Well, and I hope people are nice to them. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
Which people have been nice to Lyra Blair. Um, but I'm sure they'll do something with Leia. I don't. I know it's weird, right? The whole thing of
we
like,
don't
oh,
see her.
I didn't want to see Child Leia, and then oh, she's good with Kenobi, but then I don't want to see a show. My opinions don't make sense. I just don't want everything to be founded on. Oh, audience responded to this. Now we're doing this. That's my main thing.
I think the
At
thing
the
is,
same time, give me a Reva chef.
they better not do a kid Luke though, because Luke's life is kind of freaking boring, and I don't. It's like the whole point is that his life's boring. So
He's literally Andy from Toy Story.
yeah,
He's like, unless you go into his imagined pod races, what is there to tell?
yeah, exactly. Um, I don't know. So as a
But Reva.
yes, I would do a Reva show, Revdemption show, like the post Revdemption.
Mm-hmm. I think Reva might even be if you do like a different like parallel timeline story with Reva and then like resurrecting Ben Solo. Just like have them thematically linked. They don't actually link unless you have like her in like old person makeup.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know because they're so linked that like
Mm-hmm.
I want to experience that joy at the same time of Ben Solo
Yeah.
and Reva.
All right.
But
So as a whole on the series, I think it's a great new. I think it's a great addition. And it's a great breath of fresh air in a time that we've been kind of disappointed in Star Wars. Um, yeah, I think they delivered on everything they said and more in this show. and I could not be happier with the new addition to Kenobi's journey. That's my opinion.
I think they delivered. They delivered everything of what we said and less. That's my personal like
But with the
word.
Leia stuff, man, that's a whole nother aspect we weren't even ready for.
Okay, yeah, that was that. I guess that was more, but I think that is canceled out by the production value
That's true.
because the production value was so much less than even the standard.
Yeah.
I think. Um,
Yeah. You know what I think it is? I think it's because they had to pay for Hayden and for Kenobi, or Ewan, and for James Earl Jones.
and Kumail Nanjiani,
Yeah,
right?
and yeah, on a
They didn't
TV
have to get a big name for that
on a
character.
TV budget. So just
Yeah.
saying. Also, I can't remember his
I feel
name.
for the designers, all the costume designers, the concept artists, they are on such a crunch
Yeah,
to
well,
turn
also,
out something that feels like Star Wars in a short amount of time. Um,
yeah,
Doug Chang, I love you, but can you use your sway to like get them to give you more time,
yeah. Well,
please?
this is on a lower level than the other actors, but even the actors who played Owen and Beru, like they're like kind of big time Star Wars actors. They were in the prequels, so they probably weren't probably that cheap to come on. But
Joel Joel Edgerton was like he's skyrocketed since Revenge of the Sith,
yeah,
relatively speaking. And Deborah Chow has spoken about how lucky she is that George Lucas casted him because he's such a great tool for the show.
oh yeah,
Bonnie P.S. on the other hand has had a different story. She got caught up in like a cult and was
oh,
yeah. So this is her return to the screen in like 5 years.
jeez,
Um, but yeah, I think she's doing better.
good. Well,
Interesting note to
interesting way to end. But like we said, it's great, and we would love to know what you think of the show. Um, we're not going to be taking a break from podcasting, but we are just probably going to go back to our I guess Resistance rewatch for the first time series probably after this.
it might be 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Oh yeah, because we're both going to be gone. That's right.
Yes.
Anyway, we might take a gap week, but that will be the next thing. So thank you for listening to this season of We Can Know Kenobi. It may come back. We don't know. Probably not. Hopefully not. Or
You
hopefully not.
can
Probably.
never be sure.
Yeah.
Like we can know Kenobi.
You
Cannot.
you can never be sure. But if you would like to find us on any of our social medias, you can find us at Last Star Wars Pod on Instagram, and I guess Kinstagram would be the best way. Anyway, and Twitter. You can find us at Last Star Wars Podcast on Facebook and YouTube. And last but not least, if you want to email us, you can email us at laststarwarspod@gmail.com. Be sure to check out StarWarsNowThis.com. First link in the description to find all the Star Wars podcasts that you could possibly need. And for the last time, thank you for listening to We Can Know Kenobi, and we'll see you in the next episode.